Hello and welcome to CDO Magazine interview series. I'm Jason Masker with StrataScale, and we're partnering with CDO Magazine, MIT CDO IQ, and the International Society of Chief Data Officers in a series of interviews. Today, I have the pleasure of talking with Julia Bardmesser, SVP and Head of Data, Enterprise Architecture, and CRM Development at Voya Financial. Thank you, Julia, for joining me today.
Hi, Jason. So
we've touched on a couple things now. You've mentioned you have to have data in the first place, which I suppose everybody has data. You mentioned people and capability. What do you actually consider most important to execution? What's the right mix? What's essential to getting things done with data?
Yeah, well, people. I think building a team is incredibly important. And I think it's very important to build a diverse team in the way of how you think about in terms of approaches. So I kind of categorize people into three areas, and it's not the title, it's how the brain works. So engineer, architect, and program manager. And you have to have at least one of each. I mean, depending on how big your team is, because it's a very different mindset, and they have to play off each other. And you need to have a fourth one, which is a peacemaker. You get into a lot of arguments. Yeah, you get into a lot of disagreements, and it's kind of on one hand, it's very healthy. That's the whole point of diversity, because you want to bring multiple points into view, and there is a disagreement, and through the disagreement you work out what's the best approach, and that's why you need to have those multiple kind of mindsets on your team. The other skill set that's incredibly important is a translator. How do you translate between business need, business values, business strategy, and data? And that's important on both sides. I think what's missing often right now, from what I've seen, that data is being seen as something that data team does. So just gonna, go to the side, and there is a data team, and they will do whatever data people do, and they'll somehow figure out a way to bring high level, like lots of value to the business. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way.
So that's interesting, because that kind of leads into my next question for you. Outside of the technologists around data, who else is it? Because you talked about how people are so important, and and you're talking about almost like a data maturity in a culture, right? So who else is important to the organization? Where do you start?
So both in technology and in the business side, having this understanding of how business can succeed by leveraging data is incredibly important. And I just recently had that example at Voya, when somebody came in on the business side with that skill set on the business side, where really full understanding of how leveraging data moves the business. And it was incredible. We've been building a lot of reusable data assets, and we've been doing, small wins. So every consulting company out there has that small wins framework, right? So you identify use cases, usually something to do with master data management, and you identify small wins that you can make, and you build trust, and you build confidence from the business, and you progress from there. That really works, and that's what I've done, and I completely agree with it, that framework, except the next step. How do you go from small wins from really large wins? And that's where you have a gap on the business side, because your small wins, you're connecting to certain people on the business side who have day-to-day problems, and you solve them, and you do that. But to make a really large-scale impact on a program level, it needs to be institutional. You need to have somebody or a group of somebody's, even better, but at least one person who has execution power, who can move fund and move initiatives in and make the case from the business perspective, and who fully understands how to use data assets to bring that business value. And I think that's a gap in a lot of organizations that I see, like just across the industry. And the same is true for business technology teams. like you need to understand how they can deliver better with using data capabilities. So it's not just the data team kind of figuring that out on its own and just, okay, somehow miracle wise, it's just going to come on and be born, ready. Just unfortunately, I haven't figured out yet a way to do this.
So that's interesting because I have talked to quite a few organizations, and there's a frustration because the small wins don't necessarily lead directly to organizational change, right?
Right.
You need that visibility and executive sponsorship at the right level.
Mhm.
Any advice for getting that attention and getting that executive sponsor in your organization?
Yeah, well, actually, usually on the executive level, that's not a problem because otherwise, like I wouldn't be in the organization at the level I am if there isn't executive sponsorship. It's kind of the middle level. So you have executive sponsorship, and there is general understanding that data is important for the companies. It's on that execution level. So it's, I think, executive -1, -2, because people on the ground, people who struggle with the reports every single day, you also get that support. That's how you get your small wins. It's the level of people that drive large programs. That's where you need to build that support. And I don't have an answer. I'm still working on that. A lot of education, a lot of reiteration, really working closely with the business technology teams as well, because to get that kind of collaboration going between the two teams and see how those large programs that transform in the business, how they leverage data and how we work together. So I don't have a cookbook for it yet. So hopefully in next time, in a year.
Thank you, Julia, for joining me today. Please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews.
Thank you. It was a lovely conversation.